Hello everyone, this is Dr. Dandekar. Our today's topic is carcinoma of prostate. Our learning objective of the topic are to discuss etiology, pathology and pathogenesis, clinical features, staging, spread, diagnosis and management of CA prostate. The possible long question can be: describe the etiology, clinical features, diagnosis and management of carcinoma of prostate. And there can be short notes on investigation of CA prostate, PSA, that is a prostate specific antigen, management of early CA prostate, management of advanced or metastatic carcinoma of prostate, radiotherapy of carcinoma of prostate. Rarely a short note may be asked on medical castration or surgical castration in the patient of carcinoma prostate. Prostate cancer is the most commonly detected cancer in American men. It comprises 20% of all cancers in US. The prevalence of carcinoma prostate increases rapidly with the age. This is fairly observable disease in our rural population. Fortunately, this is one of the slow growing and curable cancers. At least the patient can live for a long time with a quality life. Also, there is a prediction of this cancer, as if the carcinoma is detected with a low stage and low grade, there is a good prognosis with or without treatment. And if the carcinoma has high stage and high grade, then the prognosis is bad even with the treatment. In the etiology, carcinoma prostate is associated with the genetic predisposition. It is higher in USA and higher in black population, that is in the African American population. A positive family history of carcinoma of prostate increases the relative risk. There is a definite hormonal influence, as this malignancy is not seen in eunuchs. Total fat intake, animal fat intake and a red meat intake increases the risk of prostate cancer. Some environmental factors and cigarette smoking as well as cadmium consumption are suspected as etiological agents. Also, obesity is suspected to increase the risk and higher recurrence rate after the treatment. Pathology wise, 95% of carcinoma are adenocarcinoma. Of the remaining 5%, 90% are transitional cell carcinoma and the remaining 5% will comprise of neuroendocrine or small cell carcinomas as well as sarcoma. In this topic, we will deal only with the adenocarcinoma. In the pathogenesis, it is well known that normally the prostate atrophies from 5th to 7th decade, but whenever malignancy occurs, it arises from active prostate glands only. This suggests a definite correlation between the active gland and androgenic hormone testosterone. You are aware of these diagrams and you are aware of the lobular structure of the prostate as well as the McNeill's zonal anatomy. This McNeill's zonal anatomy distributes the prostate into the transitional zone, central zone and the peripheral zone. The 70% carcinoma will arise from the peripheral zone. The 15 to 20% carcinoma will arise from the central zone. And 10 to 15 will be arising from the transitional zone. And note here that most of the CA prostate are multicentric. We will discuss the diagnosis and investigation later in this session, but right now let us know why and how it is important to stage any carcinoma. The staging is important in deciding the treatment as well as to know the prognosis. The TNM staging used here is by AJCC, that is American Joint Committee on Cancers, formed in 1997. We are still using the same classification. If there is any modification, you will have to refer to the newest edition. But for the reference, you can give this as a AJCC 1997 classification or AJCC 1997 TNM classification. T means primary tumor status, N denotes regional node status, and M indicates the presence or absence of distant metastasis. Here it is not possible to get the T size by a physical examination. So for a proper TNM assessment, you will require assessment report of your DRE, that is a digital rectal examination or per rectal examination, plus ultrasonography report of TRUS, that is transrectal ultrasonography. In addition, you will require a CT or MRI. In addition, you may need a PET or bone scan along with a mandatory report of prostate specific antigen. So let us come to this T status. The first is the TX cannot be assessed. Where do you get such a situation? TX not assessed, that means tumor cannot be assessed. Suppose a patient has undergone TURP, for TURP means transurethral resection of prostate for benign prostatic hyperplasia, BPH, and the histopathology report turns out to be adenocarcinoma. Here you have confirmed carcinoma, but right now you don't have any tumor to know its size. This situation is called as TX. The last year denotes the TIS, that is a carcinoma in situ. This T status is obviously possible if biopsy report is available. Let us go further. Next is the T1 status of CA prostate, which you can further subdivide into T1A, T1B and T1C. You can read this description, but I will just repeat. T1A means if you see the histopathology report, less than 5% of tissue will show cancer and the rest will be normal. That means the rest cells will be normal, as well as the digital rectal examination will not show presence of any tumor or nodule. T1B means if you see the histopathological report, there will be more than 5% of cells showing cancer, but the digital rectal examination here will also be normal. Now the T1C is applicable to the patient who have elevated PSA, prostate specific antigen levels, but the DRE, that is the digital rectal examination, is normal and there is no detectable lesion on sonography. The next stage will be a T2, and this T2 can be further subdivided into T2A and T2B. The T2A tumor is palpable on digital rectal examination or is visible by the TRUS only on the one side of prostate, and it is confined within the prostate. The T2B tumor is palpable on digital rectal examination or is visible by the TRUS on both sides and is also confined to the prostate. The point to be noted here is that the prostate capsule is intact either in A or B, whether it is present in the one side or both sides, still it is confined within the prostate. The next higher stage is the T3. It is also divided into T3A as well as T3B. The T3A is a state in which the sonography will show extracapsular extension of one or both sides. And the T3B, when the seminal vesicle is involved on sonography. Obviously that cannot be palpated, but you will have to get this report on a transrectal ultrasonography. The next and last stage is the T4, that indicates the tumor which directly extends into the bladder neck, sphincter, rectum, levator muscles or into the pelvic side wall. So this has come out of the capsule. In the T3 the extension was limited, but here it has came out of the capsule and definitely involved or extended into the surrounding structure. Now let us come to the nodal status. N is the nodal status and that is decided preferably with either US ultrasonography or with the CT or with the MRI report. Now there applies the same principle. NX is a condition where the nodal status cannot be assessed. The N0 denotes no regional lymph node metastasis, and whatever the size, the N1 metastasis in a regional lymph node, if there is a lymph node involvement or multiple lymph nodes are involved, that will be N1 metastasis. And which nodes are the regional lymph nodes? The list is given here is the obturator, internal iliac, external iliac, presacral and the periaortic lymph nodes, which will form the regional set of the regional lymph node. Now let us come to the M status, that is the metastatic status. And this estimation of this distant metastasis status will require CT, MRI or PET scan as well as the bone scan. So here MX cannot be assessed. M0 is the absence of distant metastasis and M1 is the presence of metastasis. Now this M1 is further subdivided as M1A. In M1A, the distant metastasis is in non-regional lymph nodes. That means involvement beyond the regional lymph nodes. You are already aware of the regional lymph nodes. If it goes beyond that, then it is called as a M1A. M1B denotes the distant metastasis to bone. And M1C, there is a distant metastasis to other sites like liver, lungs, kidney and adrenal glands. Let us come to the TNM staging. Actually, these stages, for practical purpose, you can use the tumor status, that is the T status, directly for staging this disease from stage 1 to 4. So I will not repeat the description. The stage 1 correlates to the T, A, B or C. And if you see this diagram, the diagram is not showing any lesion. But the first report is as per the specimen, less than 5% of the cells are cancerous. T1B, more than 5% specimen are cancerous. And here in the T1C, it is the diagnosis is based on the elevated levels of the PSA. The stage 2 correlates to the T2A or T2B. You can see here that T2A, it is confined to the one side of the prostate, and here both sides or the both lobes or rather both sides of the prostate are involved. Stage 3 correlates to the T3A and B, here T3A and B, and stage 4 correlates to the T4, that is a tumor fixed to the or invaded into the adjacent structure like bladder, rectum, or you can see this diagram. Here it has just come out, but here it has come out and invaded into the surrounding structure. So that is a stage 4. Here is the comparative diagram. You can compare from the T0 to the T4. Obviously, these are the higher stages. From as the stage is increasing, the involvement is more and more. So this is important, how the carcinoma of prostate spread, and that will decide how it spreads. It spreads through all the modes like continuity, that means growth of the primary tumor itself, that is the first mode. Contiguity, that is the local spread to the neighboring structure. As it is increasing in the size, obviously it will invade the surrounding structures. The third mode is by lymphatic spread to the regional lymph nodes and beyond. And the last, which gives the distant metastasis, is the hematogenous spread, which is more common to the bones and later to the viscera. First, let us consider the local spread. The early cancer stage 1 and 2 usually are confined to the prostate. But stage 3 onwards, when it comes outside, they usually grow upward to involve seminal vesicle, bladder neck, trigone. It may continue to grow upward to obstruct the ureter, but fortunately the rectum is rarely involved because of the strong Denon-Wheeler fascia which is interposed between the prostate and rectum. Now next is the lymphatic spread. The lymphatic vessels or the regional lymphatic metastasis commonly goes to the obturator lymph node chain. Thus, the lymphatic vessels from the prostate pass to the obturator fossa, they travel along the rectum and then reach the obturator lymph nodes which are lying along the internal iliac vein. The lymphatics from the seminal vesicle and vas deferens drain into the external iliac lymph nodes. The other site of involvement include the internal iliac, external iliac, presacral and the peri-aortic lymph nodes. The hematogenous spread is important. The hematogenous spread commonly causes the distant metastasis to the axial skeleton. The most usual site of the distant metastasis is a lumbar spine. The next most common site in the decreasing order is proximal femur, pelvic bone, thoracic vertebrae, rib cage, sternum and humerus. The bony lesions of the metastatic carcinoma of prostate are typically osteoblastic. Involvement of long bone can lead to a pathological fracture. Pathological fracture means the fracture which occurs with a minimum stress or minimum trauma. Vertebral body involvement can result in cord compression. You can remember one dictum. If a male patient comes with a feature of if an elderly male patient comes with a feature of bony metastasis like bone pain, pathological fracture or cord compression with unknown primary, in that case always look for prostatic carcinoma first. Visceral metastasis most commonly will involve the lung, the liver and adrenal gland. Clinical presentation. Most of the patients are actually detected incidentally during their PR or DRE examination. Some are detected incidentally while undergoing transrectal ultrasonography. And few patients who are operated for benign hyperplasia of prostate will show cancer on histopathological report. Clinical presentation or the local symptom. Some patient may complain of urinary symptoms like bladder outlet obstruction. Some may present with acute retention, hematuria, or incontinence. And occasionally, few patients will present with the symptoms due to metastasis, and they will be presenting with a bony pain, symptoms of cord compression, or pathological fractures of bone. Gravely, this can be the manifestation of the distant metastasis of advanced CA prostate. So, how to confirm the diagnosis of carcinoma of prostate? Digital rectal examination, that is the first and foremost simple clinical examination that will give you a good diagnosis in many of the patients with a carcinoma of prostate. Actually, every elderly patient who is coming to you with a urinary complaints or with symptoms suggestive of BPH, you must perform a careful DRE, keeping in mind a possibility of carcinoma of prostate. Why DRE is helpful? Because the 70% carcinoma occur in the peripheral zone of prostate. So there is a high chances to detect this nodule on a simple digital rectal examination. If you find a firm nodule, the chances of carcinoma are very high. But don't forget the differential diagnosis. If you come across a nodule in the prostate, there are possibility that it could be because of BPH, chronic prostatitis, TB prostate, prior biopsy because which has fibrosed and feeling like a nodule, or fibrosis which may occur in the cases of previous prostatitis. It could be a prostatic cyst or it could be a prostatic calculus. So you have to remember this differential diagnosis. But the high chances in an elderly patient presenting with a irregular firm hard nodule will be carcinoma of prostate. Now if such a patient comes, so if there is a suspected prostatic nodule which needs to be investigated, the first and foremost non-invasive gold standard examination is with the ultrasonography, and that too will be a transrectal ultrasonography. CT is useful in locating the lymph node involvement, but TRUS will give you a better or a reliable finding of the regional lymph nodes. Some people use MRI, but practically CT is better, and than the CT, the transrectal ultrasonography is better. Every patient who is coming with a suspected nodule or even BPH, the prostate specific antigen estimation is must. Bone scan and PET scan will help to know the status of the distant metastasis. And lastly, it is mandatory to have the tissue diagnosis, because if you are treating the carcinoma, which will be a morbid treatment, in that case, it is mandatory to establish the presence of carcinoma. So, you have to take a biopsy of the nodule. There are various methods of taking biopsy from the prostate. Because most of the malignancy are located in the peripheral zone, you will have to approach the prostate either perrectally or via perineum. See, the cystoscopic biopsy is not helpful because you will be entering into the central zone, which has got only 15 to 20% chances. So the peripheral zone, which can be approached from the rectal or the perineal route. So you can take a transrectal biopsy using a true cut needle or by using a spring operated automated core biopsy apparatus. In another method, you can go through the perineal approach. Why perineal approach? That will avoid the contamination of prostate. See, if you go through the rectum, some rectal content will be driven into the prostate because you are breaching the denonular fascia. Now, as it is visible in the diagram, if you go through this perineal region, you will avoid the rectal approach. So you will be entering from the perineum into the prostate. So this will be a very sterile approach compared to the rectal approach. So that will avoid the contamination of prostate and will give you a sterile approach to the prostate. Now, both these approaches can be made more effective if they are guided by the TRUS. So whenever you are doing biopsy, it is commonly called as a TRUS guided biopsy of the nodule, either rectally or by the perineal approach. Now this PSA has got a significance in diagnosis of CA prostate. So you have to know some information about this PSA antigen, prostate specific antigen. Sometimes you may be asked a short note on this. The PSA, that is a prostate specific antigen, is estimated from the serum. It is a glycoprotein secreted by prostatic cells. It helps in liquefying the semen as well as proteins, and it is an effective tumor marker in the diagnosis and for management. How it is helpful? The increase in the levels of PSA are diagnostic of malignancy with a 50 to 60% accuracy. You can use this tumor marker to monitor the management of the CA prostate. How? After the radical prostatectomy, the PSA level should fall to 0. If you find nil level of PSA, that means your radical prostatectomy is perfect. Failure to drop to 0 indicates there is a residual disease. So once it has come down to 0, you continue to monitor the levels of PSA 3 months, 6 months. The rise in the PSA after the post-radical prostatectomy will suggest recurrence. So that is how you can manage this patient. In advanced disease, it will help in monitoring the progress or disease. Suppose a patient comes with a T3 or T4 levels. You always have to get the initial PSA level. Then you start with either medical management or a surgical management. In that case, you will observe if the patient is responding, the PSA level will go down. And that is how you can monitor the progress of the disease. Next investigation will be bone scan. The bone scan is usually done with the technetium 99M labeled diphosphonate. But there is a problem with the bone scan that sometimes you can get a false positive report in the degenerative arthritis, in a Paget disease, as well as if there is a history of prior trauma. Now the patient established as the CA prostate should undergo bone scan to rule out the distant mates, but the necessity of this bone scan is now replaced by PET scan. Here we conclude the part 1 of this topic. In the next session, we will meet to discuss the management. So thank you, stay safe and take care.